Greetings, Temple Beth Shalom. I'm back with my Parashat Shavua, Torah portion of the week. This week we are in Parashat R'eih from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 11:26 through 16:17. And we're continuing with laws and loyalty. Loyalty, of course, to God. So the outline of the Torah portion is, the first section is the choice between blessing and curse. And then the second is a commencement of Deuteronomy's legal collection. Introduction, demand for centralization of sacrifice in God's chosen place, rules about the consumption of meat and tithes, warnings against worshiping as other nations do, warnings against false prophets or diviners, warnings against illicit mourning practices, dietary laws, tithing regulations, laws of release in the seventh year, the Jubilee year, remission of debt, release of debt servants, laws about the dedication of the firstborn male of livestock, and laws about the pilgrimage festival. So a lot of laws that we are being reminded of. And this is how, because it begins with, see this day I set before you blessing and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of your God, Adonai, that I enjoin you upon this day. And curse if you do not obey the commandments of your God, Adonai, but turn away from the path that I enjoin you upon you this day and follow other gods whom you have not experienced. So basically, we have a choice. Follow God's laws and be blessed, not follow God's laws and be cursed. And as a reminder, here are all of the laws, or a bunch of the laws, majority of the laws in which or the areas of the categories of laws that you must follow. And so we're looking at the legal collection in Deuteronomy. And that's what this week's Torah portion really is. So here are the laws. Destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess worship their gods. Tear down their altars. Smash their pillars. Do not worship your God like they worship their gods. Only look to the site that God will tell you about to worship God. Rejoice before your God with your sons and your daughters, along with the family of the Levites in your settlements. Do not sacrifice or burn offerings in any place you like, but only in the place that God sets forth. Do not partake in settlements of the tithes of your new grain or wine of oil, or of the firstlings of your flocks and herds, or any of the votive offerings that you vow, or of your own free will, or of your own contributions. These are to be given to God. This is one of my favorite lines. If there appears among you a prophet or a dream diviner who gives you a sign or a portent, saying, let us follow and worship another God whom you have not experienced, even if the sign or portent named to you comes true, do not heed the words of that prophet or that dream diviner. For your God, Adonai, is testing you to see whether you really love your God, Adonai, with all your heart and soul. And so on and so forth. So there's very serious laws and restrictions against other gods, or against someone who might come and try and convince you to follow other gods. It continues with warnings about illicit mourning practices. God is very specific about how we are to mourn and not mourn our dead. And there's all these regulations about the right ways to tithe, the right ways to sacrifice and make offers to God at the altar. And then the Torah portion for this week, R'eih, ends with this section. 3 times a year, on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, on the Feast of Weeks, and on the Feast of Booths, all your males shall appear before your God Adonai in the place that God will choose. They shall not appear before Adonai empty-handed, but each with his own gift, according to the blessing that your God Adonai has bestowed upon you. Feast of Unleavened Bread, Passover. Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. Feast of Booths, Sukkot. These are the 3 pilgrimage festivals in which Jews are to go and offer sacrifices to God at the place which eventually will be the temple, inside the ark of the ark is going to be inside the Holy of Holies in the temple. So, of course, this gets a little convoluted because as a Reformed Jew, as a contemporary Jew, you might say, well, the temple has been destroyed and we don't have access to make sacrifices like they did during the time of the Bible. So what do we do? Well, that's a very good question. The physical sacrifices of the morning, afternoon, and night sacrifices at the temple are now spiritual, personal sacrifices. We have the morning service, Shachrit, the afternoon service, Mincha, and the evening service, Ma'ariv. And these have taken the place of those sacrifices at the temple. I wish you an early Shabbat Shalom, and I'll see you next time.